Good morning. Happy Wednesday to everybody. I see everybody fired up in the chat. Why y'all acting like you didn't win the game? It happened. No, I know you guys are so upset as with everything as relates to the Texas men's basketball team, even though they won. But mark my words. Roddy Terry's going to end up doing what needs to get done, and then you guys are going to be thinking about him again next year. So but we'll do that story. We'll do that. We'll have a Rodney Terry conversation another day because I wanted to bring on one of my favorite people. Become one of my favorite. He became one of my favorite people last year, which shows you how few people in this world I actually like. That it only took him a short amount of time for me to be like, he's one of my favorites. That's because I hate everybody else. But when I brought on Dash last year a couple of times, he was just so much fun to talk to. We're in the off season, and Georgia just had a bunch of guys at the combine. Texas had a bunch of guys back at the combine, and so Texas is going to be reloaded. Georgia's going to be reloaded. So I thought, what a good time to bring my main man Dash, Anthony Dash from UGARivals. Dash, come on in. How is the man with the master plan doing?
He's doing good. He's a little bit tired because he's been on the road here a little bit of late, but doing well.
Well, you got a basketball team that you're covering.
Shocking.
You said what?
Shocking.
I know. Where did that come from, by the way?
What's this round ball? What is it for?
Well, yeah. Tell me just real quick. Have you been a little surprised at the success of the basketball team at times? By the way,
at times, yes. Georgia got off to a very good start. I think it was like 12, 13-1. But everybody knew once conference play started, it was going to be a different animal with as difficult as the league was. And shoot, I was hearing your intro. How Texas fans are upset. Hey, Georgia fans had Mike White fired a week ago. They were going to hire Will Wade. They want to hire Will Wade before Texas got him. So that's kind of the conversation, that's kind of been bandied about. But now Georgia's won 3 straight. And as of today, they're sitting inside for the NCAA tournament. They can, I think, lock it up with a win over Vanderbilt, on Saturday. But it's been a strange year. Maybe they've had one of the toughest schedules. They had like 4 top 10 teams they had to play in a row at one point in time just recently. Man, it's just almost impossible to navigate that. But they're playing very well right now.
Yeah, they definitely. You can ask a Texas fan; they can tell you, Dash, that they played well. Texas fans did not like that ass kicking they received by Georgia last week, but nonetheless, hey, but I want to start with Georgia football though.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of curious. I want to go to the combine. I want to know from a Georgia perspective. I want to talk Georgia, and I want to talk big picture for a second, but. From a Georgia perspective, which moved the needle for you more? Was it Tate Ratledge and how he performed, or was it Jalen Walker not being able to perform and maybe having some questions as relates to with his draft stock? I'm kind of curious where your mind are from the Georgia perspective.
I was surprised about Jalen because we knew going in he wasn't going to take part. Tate had a great comeback, but really the person who surprised me was Jared Wilson. Did you see his 40 time?
No. What was it?
What was it? 4.89 for a center. I mean, he was getting up and down, the field. So that was probably the biggest surprise to me. But Tate had a very good combine. It's interesting because that was I think the second day when they had the defensive lineman were out talking. Vernon Broughton from Texas was asked, not by me, who was the toughest player he had seen all year. He didn't hesitate a second. Named Tate Ratledge is that guy, and I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of got you thinking, on that just a little bit. But Tate's an interesting dude. I tell you, he compared somebody asked him what's an off the field activity that you kind of relate that kind of relates to football for you, and he said turkey hunting because you've got to be patient. So he's saying stuff like that. Kind of everybody started writing it down, and tweeting it out. But no, he did great work this weekend. I think he earned him a little bit extra money.
Did you expect more from Trevor Etienne when it was all said and done, or was it just kind of exactly what you expected?
That's about what I thought. He ran a decent 40 time. I think in this, but man, there's just I don't know. I wasn't really expecting him to go out and just tear blast people, in this thing. Of course, he did pretty well against Texas in the 2 games they played with the 5 touchdowns. 2 best games he played all year was against the Longhorns, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But but he had a good combine. He helped himself, and he'll get picked. I don't think he'll be, maybe 3rd round, 4th round guy.
Yeah. What do you, big picture, Dash, what do you think it says that from, Texas representing the SEC now, that Georgia and Texas sent the most people, to the combine? What do you think that, I mean, we know from a Georgia perspective, that's kind of what you expect, but what do you think just overall what that says about the state of both programs?
Just that both programs have some pretty damn good athletes playing for their respective programs. And that surprised me a bit. I mean, everybody knew, I think, coming in what Texas was going to bring to the league, not just from a competitive standpoint, but from an athlete standpoint. I mean, there's some highly ranked kids that Texas brings it every single year, and this was absolutely no shock to me to see the Longhorns, as well represented, as they were in Indianapolis.
Were you surprised at all that Carson Beck transferred to Miami? And I'm kind of curious because you have boots on the ground. Why didn't he just not come back for one more year at Georgia? I'm so fascinated by that. And clearly he needs to get some security devices for his cars, right? You remember?
Yeah, no doubt.
You remember the club, Dash? Used to put that on there and make preventive for anyone from put on the steering column and stuff.
Yeah. That Lambo's probably in Europe right now. I mean, probably on some boat. I mean, he's just. I mean, he's probably seen the last of that thing. I think his girlfriend might have got hers back, but that Lambo's probably gone. But it's a weird situation with Carson. I mean, nobody's actually come out and said it, but he just did not, just didn't come across as being I won't say team guy because he was. He just, a word I like to use for Carson is mercurial. He's just a different kind of cat. You know what I mean? And
I like that word, by the way.
And we actually, talked to Tate Ratledge about that a little bit, and Tate kind of indicated as such. Saying because he had roomed with him for 3 years, he kind of knew how to talk with him, and kind of when things start going bad, Carson would sometimes I don't know, just watch himself, and Tate knew how to kind of talk him through some of those issues. But again, I'm just not sure if the Georgia's team saw him as that that quote unquote leader, the guy they could all get behind, and and I think a good example of that was in the second half of the SEC championship game. And you were there, you saw it. How Georgia just, Gunnar Stockton comes in and Georgia just elevates its intensity, everything else about it, and it's a different looking offensive team with him in the game. Now, that's not to say that if Carson had played, he might have come back and played well, and Georgia still won that football game. But you could just tell that the players just really were able to get behind Gunnar. They have that kind of respect for him. They want to do well for him. So I think it was probably a good thing that he moved on. Now, I thought he was going to go pro, but those NIL dollars talk to him. He's going to make $7 million or so, whatever it's going to be for the Hurricanes next year. Crazy numbers, which is probably as much as he would have made his rookie year, in the NFL. So good luck to him. I mean, the players, again, they have no, I don't think really ill feelings toward him. They just wasn't. I think it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah, I mean and that's a fascinating, and it must have been felt on both sides, right, Dash? Because typically in situations like this, I know Texas. Maybe you can speak to Georgia. I know when Texas doesn't want to lose a guy, they usually fight pretty hard to make sure they keep them and make sure they're satisfied from an NIL perspective and all those kind of things. Usually if they let a guy walk, it's because it's kind of a mutual, like, all right, go ahead and go. Is that what you kind of sense from the Georgia side? Like, hey,
yeah,
if you wanted to go, you can go. It's okay.
Yeah, and then here's the deal on that. After the elbow injury, Gunnar went out. I mean, Carson went out and had all these experts look at his, elbow, just try to decide what to do. He was never, ever in any contact with UGA about what he was doing.
Oh, wow.
Well, he had asked Kirby Smart a couple of times after it happened, like, what's up with Carson? Kirby did not know because he had not spoken with Carson whatsoever, and had not only a couple of days, before the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. So I think it was the case where everybody was just ready just to move on.
So then tell me, what does the quarterback situation look like? Because it's fascinating for me. Like, I've read stuff that the Gunner will be in a competition in the offseason. It's almost two different worlds, because Quentin Ewers leaves, he goes to the NFL, and everybody knows who the quarterback is. Like, I don't, we can. That's fine. What happens from a Georgia perspective, though?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Gunner Stockton is going to be the guy, but again, you're still talking about a guy with not a lot of experience. He's a different quarterback too than what you're used to seeing from Georgia. I mean, like for example, I'm told right now you're hearing that Mike Bobo is starting to install more mesh concepts for Gunner, which is something I don't think they've done with a single quarterback since Kirby has been in Athens. But they've also got Ryan Puglisi, who's a redshirt freshman. He's one of these guys who looks the part. He's 6'2", 220, got the rifle arm, can move pretty well in the pocket. So it's probably going to come down between those two, unless they, again, find somebody in the portal. But at this point in time, there's really nobody left, I think, that's going to come in and compete with either of those guys. Now, Georgia did try to get the quarterback from Cal, Mendoza, to come in. Eventually, he went to Indiana. So, it kind of showed there that they're still not 100% sure if they can really, count on Gunner to a certain extent to really kind of be the guy. But that's pretty much what they're tied into right now. It's either going to be Gunner or Ryan, for better or for worse.
Who's the other one? You said Ryan who? What's his name?
Ryan Puglisi. He's from Connecticut.
Yes. And so you go into the season, and again, we got plenty of time, right? Springs and so on and so forth. What are the other areas, though? Because when you got 14 guys that are supposed to participate in the combine, 13 do, that's definitely having to reload at a lot of different positions. And so tell me where Georgia is going to have to start reloading, and the things that you have to be following in the offseason.
There is a lot. There is probably more reloading for this team to do this year. And I'm going to say Kirby's first year in 2016. There's a lot of holes, in my opinion. Wow. I mean, we just talked about the offensive line. They haven't replaced 4 starters off of that group. Not a lot to choose from right now. I mean, Ernest Green Jr. Was the left tackle for most of the year. Had a lot of injuries, hurt his shoulder. He's healthy now. He's going to be back, so he'll help. And they've got a couple other guys. Michael Morris is one of the guards who's played a good little bit, but again, losing Tate Ratledge, who was such a great leader, they got to find another center, which is probably going to be Drew Bobo, Mike Bobo's son. And they've got to get a right tackle, which is probably going to be, I think, Monroe Freely, who had he started the last 5 games, but really struggled against Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl and gave up a couple of key sacks, in that one. So and after those guys, I mean, who really knows? I mean, depth is they got numbers, but just nobody who is proving anything in an actual game yet. Depth at running back, I think, is a concern. Etienne has moved on. Nate Frazier I think, it's going to be a very good running back. He may rush for 1,000 yards this year, but Georgia has been bitten with injuries. Was bitten with injuries last year. Roderick Robinson, Branson Robinson both missed, most of the season last year. Can they stay healthy? So far, they've proven they cannot. Chauncey Bowens is a redshirt freshman who they have a lot of high hopes for, but again, has not have much experience. Cash Jones, who's Georgia's third down back, is a guy they like to throw to in those type of situations. But he's a small guy. He didn't even rush for, I don't think, 50 yards all year long. So there's some questions there. I mean, number one, I think keeping guys healthy is probably the biggest one. But also, there's just not a lot of guys back there other than Frazier without much experience.
Yeah, but at this point, I know you said it's one of the biggest, reloads that's had to be done. Do you feel like, do you look at Kirby and you feel like, all right, that's a guy I don't have to question, because at the end of the day, no matter what it looks like before the season, it's going to be all right? Or do you say to yourself, you know what, this SEC is tougher than usual, and you can't count these chickens before they hatch?
That's kind of the way I look at it right now. I mean, again, Kirby has done a great job recruiting. I mean, no doubt about that. And a lot of these players we're talking about 4-star, 5-star guys who everybody in the country, wanted. But I still think the fact, they don't have that much experience in a lot of areas. I think it's going to be a big concern for this group early on. They're going to have to grow up pretty quickly, I think. And there's not much, there's not much forgiving time once you start SEC play. So there's some things they've got to work out this year, position wise, player wise, that I'm really interested to see how it kind of turns out.
Dash, by the way, if you need good pick-me-ups, these chats are so good. They love you so much.
I see. I've been reading them. And tell whoever thinks that the curtains behind me are still the same ones I had last time. We didn't make any kind of changes there.
I think it's sarcasm, Dash. I think it's sarcasm.
My sarcasm button, being on the dog vent every day is kind of shot. So.
Does it help from a Georgia perspective, Dash, that a lot of their tougher games are going to be at home this year?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
You got Bama at home.
Yeah.
Ole Miss is at home. Texas is at home. I mean, when I'm kind of breezing through the schedule, at Florida might be the toughest game, and we got obviously at Auburn, but it looks like and at Tennessee. But it looks like a lot of the tough games, it looks like those are going to be at home. That's got to help a little bit, right?
Yeah, it does. And that was the big, complaint by fans last year. Their schedule was too tough and all the hard games were on the road. No, this year it's flipped. So, yeah, that should help them. Playing in Sanford Stadium. I mean, any team playing at home in the SEC, I think, is going to feel pretty good about that deal. But, again, it's the – Georgia has some questions, I think, within its program right now with some of the talent, some of the players that, that's going to still be maybe a little more difficult to win those games now than say the past, 2 or 3 years.
The Green Lantern asked a question, and maybe you just answered it. He wanted to know, should we assume the Longhorns and Bulldogs will play each other in the conference championship game again? Because Texas has holes to fill as well.
Sure.
So, but, Or is that shoulder shrug was your answer?
Yeah, that shoulder shrug is my answer. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm being dead serious. I'm not just trying to gaslight you or the folks watching this podcast. Georgia has some issues this year. They've got to figure out if they want to get back to the SEC championship next year. I mean, y'all, and again, your folks may think I'm crazy nuts, but but look out for Florida next year. I mean, they've got a lot of positives going for that program right now. I mean, and maybe Tennessee, too, if they could overcome a couple of their hurdles. But I don't think it's a slam dunk in any stretch for Georgia right now to assume it's going to get back to the SEC championship game. And again, it starts at quarterback. I mean, what will Gunnar Stockton be able to do over the course of a full season? And I do think Georgia has helped its wide receiver core. They brought in some really good players. Zachariah Branch from Southern Cal. One of the more electric players, I think, freshman in the country. His play is a dynamic player, and Georgia signed a couple of really top-notch wideouts in, Talion Thomas and Wiley, C.J. Wiley, local kid from just up the road. So I think the receivers will actually be better. Tight ends are going to be strong, but again, there's the offensive line, quarterback. Maybe there's still some questions on the defensive front. Not a lot of experience there, either. So they got some things to figure out before I think they can start, punching their ticket back to Atlanta for the championship.
So SEC Matt just wanted to know, hey Dash, you want to see a Miami versus Georgia?
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be some storylines in that one?
Yeah,
I'd love to see that. Yeah, just from I mean, Carson Beck playing against Georgia, I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of back and forth, going on with that one.
How do you think he's going to do in Miami? By the way, how do you think he is going to fare? I'm
not really up on what kind of receivers they have at Miami this year. I mean, I know they lost some key guys, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Again, Gunnar. I mean, I'm sorry, I keep getting the two confused for whatever.
That's
reason.
Okay. I mean, me too.
But Carson, we'll see how he responds. I mean, I hope he does well. He's always treated me good in interviews and always been very, very respectful. But I just don't know. I mean, it's there was a story that came out. I guess USA Today had one about a month ago, I think, where Carson's camp was citing those anonymous sources about some of the drops that Georgia had and how that was blamed for Carson's mistake. And there were some players that kind of took things, I think, the wrong way with that. Arian Smith Matter of fact, he was asked about that a little bit, and I think one of the comments that came out of the Carson story was what was the exact quote that came out was something about anyway that kind of Arian didn't take too nicely, so he made a little snide little comment there behind about Carson, I think. But that's just kind of the way it is right now. And again, that's why I think there's nobody I don't think that's upset that he's not here.
Dash, Sark After Dark asked a question that I actually wanted to pick your brain on as well. We all entered last year with the SEC saying, okay, they're going to see what happens, who gets into the playoffs, and go from there. I thought coming out of that the SEC would say, you know what, 8 games, because you saw you saw the Alabamas not get in, from 9 wins, or you saw Ole Miss, right? And so I didn't think that they would want to add in another conference game to make it harder on the league, where you saw that other programs, even when they didn't have the strength of schedule, they were rewarded. When we thought, like, how the hell are you going to reward the Indianas of the world, or some of these other programs are like didn't play anybody? So what do you think when it's all said and done about what it seems like is going to be a 9-game schedule?
Yeah, well, I'm curious to see too what kind of with the Big Ten and the SEC, now trying to throw their weight around and guarantee each team, at least 4 representatives in the playoffs. If they can pull that off, then go to a 9-game schedule. Otherwise, I'm like you. I'm like, why bother? I mean, if you're going to get penalized for playing a tough schedule, I mean, why would you do it? That doesn't make any sense to me. But if the leagues again can finagle it where they can are going to get 4 teams in every year, then go ahead and do it and play it that way. But we'll see. I mean, but I'm like you though. When it first all that stuff first started coming out, with the way the playoffs were allocated, this year, I'm like, why would SEC even think about going 9 games when they're getting punished for it?
I mean, and what do you think should be the approach? And tell me what is typically Georgia's approach to non-conference games? Texas goes to the approach of, well, we want to play the best. Like, so you got Ohio State, right? And again, I'm on the opposite end. I'm like, you don't need Ohio State. Find Central Ohio State, Midwestern, something like that. What does Georgia's non-conference approach look like?
Well, here's where Sark and Kirby are like-minded in this. I mean, Georgia wants to play. Kirby wants to play these top teams. Georgia has a series coming up in a couple of years with Florida State home and home. They've got one with Louisville. Georgia's got one of Ohio State in about 7 years. They've got Clemson again. So unless Kirby changes his mind, you're going to see the Bulldogs, play some of these other marquee games early in the season. Now, again, could it wind up biting them a little bit? If they happen to lose, I mean, yeah, sure it could. But Kirby is always been very adamant about playing the best competition out there.
Yeah, and Texas is too. I mean, Texas, again, it's opening up against Ohio State. Last year was Michigan, right? Before the conference stuff happened, there was the Georgia, and Florida and things like that. And so, they got Notre Dame in the future. So, Texas has the same, thing. Like, again, that's maybe why you and I aren't athletic directors. But I would have the Austin Peay's and everybody else of the world. So, right now, I know it's early. It's March, but we have to have a conversation anyway. Who do you think? You're just guessing, right? I want to ask you maybe 2 more questions. Who do you think the team is to beat going into SEC play in 2025? I mean, wow. I know it's early. It's early, but I'll throw out there that. There's a Manning kid you may have heard of that plays at Texas.
Yeah.
That people think are pretty hype about, have pretty high expectations. I don't know what Ole Miss is going to look like without Jackson Dart, and Alabama's losing Milroe. So, but anyway, just kind of throwing it out there. What do you think?
LSU's quarterback returning, so that's going to be something to maybe watch out, with Florida. Florida too. I mentioned Florida, earlier. man, this is going to be a cop-out answer, but I really think it's going to be more wide open next year than we've seen in a number of years. I mean, I think Arch Manning is going to give Texas an advantage. I know he's a young guy. God, that guy's so talented. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is just like a full season of him. I think Longhorn fans are going to have a lot to be smiling about. I think after the next year is done, just from him being under center. I just think I always have thought the world of Arch and just what he's able to bring. And again, Georgia, I just don't know about Gunnar Stockton. I mean, he's done some good things, but man, I just can't sit here and tell you that, Georgia fans are going to hate me for saying that, but if he can, be the guy over the course of a season. I mean, I just don't know. Mm-hmm. And again, each team has questions. Each team in this league has, strengths, weaknesses that it's kind of hard to, in a lot of cases, to differentiate some of these guys. But invariably, it always comes down to who plays the best quarterback, and that's what's going to, I think, ultimately decide who the champion of the league next year is going to be, who gets the best performance out of their QB.
Yeah, SEC versus Big Ten would definitely do numbers. That, I mean, are they basically just? Is it just a matter of time before they just combine and say, you know what, screw you, NCAA, we don't need you. We're just going to do our own thing.
Well, it sounds like it, don't it? I mean, just to have a big giant super league and have an 8-team playoff, 8-game, teams involved from 4 from each league, and just say we're going to be the champion. What you going to do about it? So
it seems like it's
the world
head that way. One of the things I want to ask, as we wrap,
no hurry.
Texas really, it likes to go into the state of Georgia and recruit guys out of there, right? And you saw that they got the top defensive tackles, one of the top players in the country, out of there in this past 2025 recruiting cycle. I'm kind of curious from a Georgia perspective. Do they feel like Justice Terry's by the way? I don't know why I couldn't remember his name, but Justice Terry. Does Georgia feel like they have to put a better wall around their state to make sure that teams like Texas don't come in, or is that just impossible to do?
It's impossible to do. I mean, Georgia, like the state of Texas, Georgia had just so many great players. There's no way they're going to get them all. Now they need to get as many of the good ones, the really good ones, as they can. But there's no way to keep programs like Texas or Ohio State, which is another program that really comes in and does an outstanding job. Alabama, Auburn. I mean, all these teams come in and just really rack up. I mean, there's just so many great players, in the state. The level of high school football here is so advanced in a lot of, in a lot of places. I mean, this is where it's at. I mean, it's where, Georgia, Texas, California, and Florida are the 4, states for your best high school football, in my opinion, and that's going to continue.
Texas has already announced it's not going to have a spring game. Mm-hmm. Is Georgia going to have one a traditional spring game, or are they going to kind of follow suit?
No. It's going to be a glorified scrimmage. That's what it's always been. They call it a G-Day game, a spring game. It's never a game. It's just a controlled scrimmage. Lets fans come out and see who all's doing what, see who's playing what position. But yeah, they're going to keep doing it. I mean, we've asked AD Josh Brooks that, and he said, "Oh yeah, the game is definitely still going to be on." And so I guess for the foreseeable future, Georgia will continue to have it.
But what does Kirby say about the long season? Because, the thing that Sark and his thing was, and not too dissimilar from a Georgia perspective, but, from the time Texas was done in the Cotton Bowl to the time they started winter conditioning, only 17 days had passed. And so the thought process from the Texas side is, hey, we're starting in January. We're basically finishing in January. So you know what? They want to go to an NFL OTAs kind of model to kind of preserve the bodies. What does Kirby say when you guys ask him or he's talked about just it being such a long season? Not only for the players, for the coaches. The recruiting never stops. NIL never stops. As soon as the season was over, every damn kid at Texas was wanting to know where their NIL money was going to be. So how does he talk about addressing the long year?
Yeah, with Kirby, I think it's more about the recruiting calendar that's kind of got him, I think, more up in arms than anything else. I think he's really okay with the where they go about practice and the schedule with all that, but it's just the recruiting, when guys can come in, and because a lot of times they don't know how many spots on the roster they're going to need to fill. So that's probably the main thing with coach, as opposed to switching up the way they practice for spring.
The last one, Dash. Do you have any pets? If you do, you got some old dogs that don't bark.
Hold on 1 second. Can you hold on 1 second?
Oh yeah, I got nothing but time.
So if I can get him on.
Oh look,
that's my Basset Hound. That's Jimmy.
Wow.
Look, now he's looking up. See, now he's looking at you. So
look at Jimmy.
Yeah, he's just chilling out.
Oh my! How old is Jimmy?
Jimmy is 3.5 years old.
Oh wow! What a beautiful dog.
Now he's going to want a biscuit because I woke him up.
So is that's all you got? Is this Jimmy?
No, there's a couple of cats here somewhere, but we don't put them on YouTube or anything like that. So
well, cats don't they're antisocial anyway.
Yeah, cats are cats. I don't I'd rather have dogs.
So you're saying the cat wasn't your call, is what you're trying to say?
Well, they kind of fell in our laps, and that's two long stories on both of those. So.
In other words, the missus said, and you said,
well, one of them, I'll tell you just real quick. One of them, my wife found in the mud puddle as a kitten. Felt sorry for it, brought it in the house, and I'm nursing back to health. Another time, I'm coming back from the Georgia-Florida game. I drive through this little town in Waynesboro, Georgia. I stop at the National Guard Armory just to rest, and this black cat comes running down a tree and jumps in my car. I'm like, take the cat, and I put it out. I say, you're not coming home with me. Cat jumps back in the car and says, yes, I am. I'm like, fine. So I take the cat and I bring him back to Athens, and that's it.
What?
Seriously.
The cat just jumped in the car?
The cat just jumped in the car, ran down a tree, and jumped in. It's Halloween night, too. That's what makes it even, stranger.
A black cat
on
Halloween night, and you took it home.
And I took it home, exactly. True story.
How old was the cat at the time?
I had no idea. And here's the thing, too. It being a black cat, we couldn't tell right off the bat if it was a male or female. So we just named it Charlie, because Charlie is one of those names, you can use either way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's definitely 100% true story. 100% true story.
So how'd you get the Basset Hound then?
Oh, my wife and I, we've always adopted Bassets. And our vet knew we had done that. The technician did, and she said she had one. So we took him in. She already had him crate trained. He doesn't, use the bathroom on the floor or anything like that. He's pretty well broken in.
Wow. This is why I love you, Dash. You're so amazing, man. Who knew? Who knew Sark After Dark was something that simple that would lead to that. Yes. Dash, tell everybody how they can follow you on Twitter. Everybody loves it when you come on here. You're one of our favorite people. If you needed an ego, not even no ego boost, if you just needed to feel good about yourself this morning,
this
damn chat should have done it for you.
We had some fun on this show.
So tell me how they can follow you, Dash.
Yeah, first of all, you can look on our website at UGAsports.com, and also on Twitter at Anthony-1. Who knows what I might say on Twitter.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. It's fantastic seeing you. I'm gonna let you get out of here, brother. But it's good talking to you. We'll talk again. Let's say maybe after spring.
Let's do
it. Let's see how Georgia's doing.
Hey, again, you got Georgia baseball going to Texas this year too. We can talk about it.
So. Oh yeah, we definitely got that. And then when you guys are in the NCAA tournament, you can let us know how that life is like.
I know what's like myself.
All right, brother. Dash is here. I appreciate him as always. I tell you what, again, one of my favorite people. He's so much fun to talk to. Great guy, right? Rescues cats, just rescuing cats and stuff, man. What a good dude. Yeah, I like talking to good people, man. He's such a nice guy, man. Such a guy. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys checking it out. If you checked this late, go back to the start of the show. Some good stuff, for him. I know there's a basketball conversation to be had. We don't want to do that today. Let's end it on a high note. Let's end it on a good note. Let's end it on positivity. And yes, someone said earlier, Unk is in 4K. Me and Spectrum got over our issues, and so we should be good going forward. Hopefully all is good. Hey, man, y'all take care and enjoy yourself. Enjoy this Wednesday. Live each day like it was your last one day. It will be. Thank you, Dash. Made us all smile. But I ain't going to